Hi, and welcome to the Bujin TV Insight Interview series. This is a series where we meet the amazing content creators behind Bujin TV community. My name is James Pankovic, founder of Bujin TV, and I'm joined today by Christian.
Hi, James. Hello, everybody. Today's guest, it's very interesting because he's a great martial artist and one of few that mixes martial arts with fashion. Every time I see him, he portray a different shirt, talks about it, and it's great. And so let's see, who are we talking about?
I'm very, very pleased to welcome Ken Knight to Bujin TV Insight Interviews. Ken, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Yes. Hey, hello. Hey, everybody. I'm doing really, really well, actually. And I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to you guys. James, I've talked to you a little bit. And Christian, really great to meet you and speak with you today.
Thank you. We
Ken,
we already have like 15 minutes of friendship, so
And even IT trouble. So we've already gone through hardships together.
That's the saying of once we meet, we're brothers and family. So that's kind of the feeling. Ken, I will say I've been enjoying your videos immensely since I came across them. You were introduced to us by other members of the Bujin TV community, which is always, the best start. And
oh yeah,
I really enjoy your work. We're going to talk about that in a bit more detail today. But Ken, you're in Wyoming. You have the Casper Dojo there. Do you want to tell us just a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Yeah, I mean, I've been training since 2006. It was easy for me to remember because I started my training on Halloween. So every time the spooky day comes around, that's a reminder that I've made it around another cycle. But I started with Okinawan karate, kabuto, and a little Japanese jiu-jitsu, and over time added Filipino martial arts and dove into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Spent time with Aikido and Tai Chi and Silat and different things, but the main things that I do are those. Our dojo in Wyoming, we call it Casper Dojo. We originally just called it the dojo because we just wanted it to be the place that you went, right? And we've got the stuff that I teach, but we've got other instructors that do in Taekwondo and Tai Chi and yoga and different things all of there. So it's kind of, we wanted a place. What I wanted to happen was because that was not the way that it was when I started. It was something that happened when I took over. I wanted the ability for somebody to have a place to go where maybe they like what I do, maybe they like how I teach, but maybe they don't. And that didn't mean that they had to go somewhere else across town or somewhere else, that they just had a place to go.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I mean, I'm not surprised that you've built a community of like-minded people around you, because it comes through in your videos that you're very honest, very open, and you speak from the heart. But I also get the feeling that you spend a lot of time thinking quite deeply about the subjects that you talk about. How is the process of sort of becoming a content creator, becoming someone that's producing a video on a weekly basis? How's that been for you?
Bizarre. and yeah, it's a weird thing. It's certainly something I never thought that I would do. I started it initially as a way. I'm not really good at taking notes or blogging or something like that. And so I thought maybe I record things. I realized in my training that I don't have a lot of video and a lot of recordings of my instructors and the stuff that we did. There just wasn't a thing that we did, and I am terrible at taking notes. I'm trying to be better. There's so many people right now making really wonderful journals based specifically to the martial arts, and I'm using those to try to hone that craft. But a while before I started this, I started recording my classes, so that I figured one of these days I'm not going to be around, and I wanted to be able to not leave people in the position I was where there is nothing. And I get on these rants in class, these tirades that I don't know, I'm choosing bad words for it, but these moments where I kind of just lose sight of whatever we were doing, and I just kind of overflow with whatever it is that I'm feeling right there, whatever we're talking about. And sometimes I'm learning in that moment while I'm talking about this thing. I'm like processing it, and I'm discovering things I didn't even know that I knew. One of my students decided to call that, after the Avatar series, he decided to call it the Avatar state. He's like, yeah, you went to the Avatar state again. You were there for a while. And sometimes I come out of it, I don't even remember everything that I talked about. I just remember, needing to kind of work through it. And I think that's kind of what led to making these videos, was going, I just need to, maybe that's a better way for me to record how I feel and the thoughts that I'm having as I'm processing, but then also be able to leave that for other people, for my students, and maybe people, ultimately later, people who are interested in hearing what I had to say about stuff, which is still kind of a weird thing. It's pretty bizarre.
Your program is very interesting because normally when you start as a martial artist, your practice goes from the outer to inner, right? You start from outside with the movement, and it goes inner into your mind, into your body. And with your program, I feel that like you reach the inner part and then you are going outwards again, but by showing us feelings that you had or learnings that you had during that process. And the first time I saw your program, I said, first, just to be completely honest, Kenfu, the name Kenfu, say, why Kenfu? And then I saw the explanation, and then you explain it to me again, and I would like you to explain what Kenfu is about. But you start gaining my heart, and now, well, you have a NPR kind of voice and very soothing. So when I program, I kind of hear to the blogs, and what you speak is very, very interesting. And being a sensei, I can relate sometimes with what you are saying or what you have experienced before.
Oh, awesome. The relation, I think, is probably the most important part. In a way, how this started for me, the thing that tipped it over, it was something I thought about a number of times. I even came up with multiple facets of what would happen. So Kenfu, I'll come back to what Kenfu means to me, but Kenfu TV, the content, originally broke into 4 categories. There was Ken Learns Kenfu, which is mostly what people know, and what you're referring to, which is me talking and processing and asking questions and thinking about all of the things that we do as martial artists. Ken Shares Kenfu, which is me sharing how I do things, the physical side of it, and the way that I do it. Things Ken likes, because I'm a collector of things. I enjoy the process. I think the 3 of us share the IT field, and I think what comes with that is puzzles and understanding. We like to know about things, and that moves into physical objects for me too. So occasionally I'll release videos talking about something that I've acquired that I wanted to know more about, and I share those things. And then Brewing Budo, something I'm excited to do more of, something that will be on Bujin TV, is conversations with other martial artists. I call it Brewing Budo because they could sit down with a beer and have a talk with somebody. Originally, the idea was to do that specifically with other martial arts in our area, other martial artists, because when I went to train, it wasn't until I started training that I realized how many people did the martial arts in town, because nobody talked about it. Everybody's school was tucked away, and you didn't know they were there. I mean, when I first started, I came back looking for a Japanese school, because I say came back. I was living in Alabama. I trained for a summer, and I was training Yoshikai Karate, and I asked my sensei, what should I do? I'm moving away, and he said, well, find a Japanese karate school. You'll be fine. And I came back, and I found like 3 Taekwondo schools and nothing else. And so I didn't move. But it wasn't until I found the school that I train in now that I met all of these different people, and I said, why doesn't anybody know about these people? And I enjoyed the conversations that I have with them, and that was the idea of Brewing Budo, is maybe we brew some tea, or we open a beer, and we just sit and we just talk about whatever it is that we have in our minds. It was one of my favorite things that I would do before Aikido, is I'd show up early and we'd sit at a table, we'd drink some coffee and just have a conversation for an hour before everybody got there and start training. As as the Kenfu TV stuff has continued, I've met so many incredible people that I want to expand Brewing Budo to include other people, other martial artists, other faces that are other people who are on Bujin TV, people who are not on Bujin TV, but there's so many great martial artists who have. Uh, it's interesting how well we can come together once we allow the internet has made this so possible. And so that was kind of I had this idea of these four things that I could do, but the thing that actually kicked it off was I was listening to some podcasts and I ran out, and I went to look for another podcast, but I didn't immediately find what I was looking for, and I just decided I was like, I think maybe it's time. Maybe I start making the content that I'm looking for. Um, I want content. A lot of people. It started on YouTube, and YouTube is a home for 5-minute videos that jump right to the point and do all of this, and it's not who I am, and I've gotten flack for it, but I've gotten a lot of positive feedback too of people who want that, because I drive around for work a lot, and I don't want it to be over in 5 minutes. I want to have time with my thoughts. I want to have time to process. I want to hear someone go deeply into something, not just cover 4 bullet points and a flashy one at the end that you got to wait for and move on. Over time, you mentioned the shirts and stuff. I wanted a way to give back, so I wear shirts from different places. I think it's showing one of the videos right now, and showing one from Karate Praxis, Christian Vedevert, and his stuff. I wanted a way to be able to continue that Brewing Budo idea where I can draw attention to other people. I easily suffer from the imposter syndrome, so I have a hard time looking at myself, and I like to make sure that people realize there's so many amazing people. And I look at YouTube, I look at the internet, I look at all of the things that are happening with Bujin TV, and I look at all of the people coming together and how much incredible talent, incredible insight exists. And so I don't care. My videos are a little bit longer. They dive deep into things, and I'm talking about the stuff that I want to hear people talk about. I can't go find people talking about it, so I talk about it. And that's kind of how that started.
I got to say, I admire your, I would call it your quietly courageous approach to your videos. You're not afraid to tackle some of the quite difficult questions, things that often I think a lot of martial artists come across at some point in their path, and maybe are a bit scared to talk about, or a bit scared to ask, or a bit scared to admit that they don't know the answer to this thing, or they're a bit stuck about what to do next. And what I really like about the subjects that you address is also, it's not just about addressing like where you are in your journey. A lot of it is for people that are maybe a little bit newer in their journey, and also for those who are further down the road too. So I really admire, like I say, your understated kind of but consistent kind of courageous approach to talking about some of the more difficult things, and like you say, the idea I think a lot of us hit it very often is am I doing the right thing? Am I qualified to be doing what I'm doing? Should I be out in front of people? Am I running things the right way? All these questions. I got my black belt. What do I do now? Where do I go from here? Right? I think your videos really, really connect with people. That's certainly how I feel. I mean, you've talked about it, but do you find that sort of the process is sort of a little bit of a cathartic process for you as well?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. In fact, the whole process is, because my process literally, I'm not a person who can work from a script. It feels very unnatural.
Yeah.
And so I on my phone I keep, if a thought comes up, I'll usually write down like a sentence. Like, let's see, I'll give you a sneak peek of something. We'll see what we've got sitting here. So one that's coming up is what are you willing to die for? And because it was a question that I was asking myself, what am I willing to die for? And in the thought is in relation to ego. what am I willing to allow my ego to put me in the place of danger for? You know, because you incite people to do things by fighting for things, and you do that through ego. And so what'll happen is I get up in the morning. I have, you know, there's Sundays I don't do anything in the dojo, and so and usually I have no idea what I'm going to do for a video. I really don't. And then I get up, I have breakfast with my fiance, we relax, and then I go take a shower. And while I take a shower, I just think about whatever it is. Maybe I read that sentence and just think about what it means to me. And I spend time quiet with my thoughts, and then I go spend time in front of a camera in the studio for a while and just talk. And that whole process from the moment I start just thinking in the shower to sitting in front of the camera, and sometimes in the editing and going, oh, I wish I would have said something like this, and you know, but it's absolutely cathartic, absolutely.
It comes through. I mean, there's the genuineness, your approach to what you're doing just comes through, and
Thank you.
I think that's you know, and that's I'm so happy that you know, you found your way to the Bujin TV community, because I know I think Chris will talk about this too, but you know, this was what we wanted to realize. The Bujin TV community is a place for really authentic martial artists to come through and express and teach and share. And sometimes that's about technique, like you say. You've kind of divided what you do into sort of, you know, into 4 streams. Sometimes it's about technique, and people always want to see that. But sometimes it's about the thought processes that go on. As someone that's kind of has a passion and pursues martial arts.
Yeah, I found as I've continued, that has become more interesting to me. I watch a lot of technique video, and the people that I love to watch technique video of are people who have good thoughts about it and pass on why they, because most of the time I don't actually care what they're doing. I'm interested in that. But what I'm really interested in is why they're doing it, or what they're thinking about, or maybe that little detail. You know, 10 people can teach you how to do like a outer leg sweep, you know, but then maybe there's a little detail about how somebody moved their hip, and I'm like, okay, that was worth it. That was worth it to hear that thought and how they came to that. And I find that stuff is so much more valuable to me than seeing just a physical technique. I'm more interested in why you think that technique should work, or why you're able to make it work the way you do.
Indeed.
Yeah, I have to say I love what you guys are doing. I got incredibly excited. I'm super humbled to be involved with it and be on Bujin TV. But I love what you're doing, because every time I open the app, every time I jump on, know that the content that I'm going to see is something that I can easily get lost in and enjoy. And it's, you know, you open things like YouTube, and I started on YouTube. I'm still on YouTube, but you open things like YouTube, and you can end up anywhere within inside of 5 minutes, literally anywhere. And sometimes you spend 20 minutes watching the worst garbage you've ever seen, and you're like, why didn't I switch? I don't know. I just watched all of that. It was awful. I've wasted all of that. You know, yeah. But instead, when I, plus it's a curated thought, right? I can travel anywhere inside of Bujin TV, but I stay within the thing that I was started off interested in. When I open the app, I'm interested in pursuing thought and ideas inside the martial arts, and I never drift. You know, YouTube, 5 minutes from now, I could be learning how to build a birdhouse or how to replumb my bathroom. You know, I don't know where I could end up. But with Bujin TV, I end up finding more things that continue me thinking in the same process that I'm on, and continue me deeper into my art, which I guess I never talked about. Kenfu. Kenfu is just the word that I gave me and what I do. And because we all have that, right? You know, James, you have your own. Christian, you have your own. It's everybody who sits next to you has their own. It's personal. It's individual. Even if you are taught by the same person, look at why styles have split the way they have. It's because 2 people stood next to each other, taught by the same teacher. And when it came time for somebody to pick up and move, those 2 people felt very differently, very strongly differently about what they were taught and what they were handed. And they went, well, no, it wasn't like this. It was like this. Well, I think it was more important that it was like this. And I think we should focus on that. And they split off and they do separate things. Well, how do 2 people that were taught by the same person end up splitting off in this way and having such strongly different things. And it's because it's personal, it's individual. The lessons given at the same time are given to two individual people who process it through their own filters of experience and culture and everything. And so for me, Kenfu is what I do, the way I do it. And so when I watch videos, when I'm browsing Bujin TV or whatever, I'm processing my art and becoming me. I can't watch any video and make you better at what you do. I can't do it. So it doesn't matter if I'm watching something that is what I do or something that's way off and away from what I do. It's making me a better martial artist, better person usually.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, that comes back to my, my theme about, having. It's really good to have you demonstrating that, you can still be dealing with a lot of questions in your journey, but have the confidence to be able to talk about the fact that what you're doing is your representation, it's your opinion, it's your unique amalgamation of what you're learning and accumulating, and that's Kenfu TV, right?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yes. So, Ken, you selected, we are seeing in the background a video called The Story of Sente. Can you please tell us about that video and why you choose it?
I'm going to be honest with you. The reason that I chose it, the reason I chose this specific one, is because I knew that it was going to be shown, and most of my videos are pretty boring to look at. I'm just going to call it on the rug, call it how it is. It's usually me talking, so it looks exactly like it does now where I'm talking. And I went, man, if it doesn't have sound, it's probably not very interesting. But this one had a little bit more. There was more visual things going on because I incorporate the idea of the game of Go, and I bring in a board and show that and go through it. And I'm speaking of Christian, and there's some clips of what he does and that sort of thing. Personally, when it comes to a concept, I really like this video because it's something that's been on my mind for a really long time. It's something that I could probably show you three different, and I've already explained how much I don't journal very well. So the fact that there are like three different journal entries about Sente shows that that must have been pretty important at some time or been on my mind quite a bit. And the video is me expressing why I think it's important, what it is conceptually, at least to me, and where it fits inside of our mindset. Sente in Go, the concept of Sente and Gote. If I am the person who is acting in a way that causes you to react, then I am said to have Sente. If I am on the opposite side, where what you're doing is forcing me to react, then I am said to have Gote. And then you tie that back. So you look at the principle, the first dojo kun that we teach, karate ni sente rashi, right? There's no. I was always taught there's no first strike in karate. There's no first, and then sometimes there's no first attack in karate. I really actually struggle every time I say it now because in my mind I go, there's no first. There's no sente. There's no sente in karate because it's hard to replace that word with a single English word that represents what's happening. And it takes a long time to say, in karate, we're not going to create a situation where you're going to force somebody to do something. That's what I'm saying, but it doesn't sound as good. People can't shout it or do whatever, it doesn't, there's no first strike in karate, but yeah, really what it really is this idea that I should never, because my instructor would always say that. He said, it doesn't mean we won't hit first. There's no first strike in karate. It doesn't mean we won't hit first. It just means you're not going to start a fight. And basically, don't be a jerk. And I was like, okay. And as I continue, what I realize is more important is the truth is, I could be a jerk. I could be a jerk. I could hit first. I could do all of these things. And to me, this concept of sente falls more in line with whether or not the thing that I'm doing, the being a jerk or whatever it is that I'm doing, putting you in a place where you feel like you have to respond to me. And then if you have to respond to me, then I might need to, now that we're interacting with each other, and depending on how that interaction looks, it could be a place that neither of us want to be. and I've got to be careful with that. And that's kind of a nutshell version of what I was talking about there, and why it's so important to me is I think it truly defines every interaction that I have with people in daily life every day. Is this idea of sente? Am I forcing you to do something that you don't want to do? That am I putting you in a place where you're having to respond to me? And maybe that's okay, but am I okay with the way that I'm making you respond to me? And if I'm not, maybe I need to check myself.
You make me think, because normally what I'm thinking lastly is about karate ni sentenashi is that you always have the option to control the situation, meaning that even if somebody
Mm.
comes to you in a position that makes you react, you can always choose not to react. Well, 95% of the time.
Yes.
Yes. In modern times, you can always choose not to react. So you're not,
Yeah.
and that it is like this. It's smooth.
Right. And bringing it back to go for just a moment, the other thing is sometimes your response. So if a good Go player, and this is true of other things usually, I would think, but I'm not a good chess player, so I can't speak to that. Uh, a good Go player, when put into a place that they have to react, does not necessarily react that way. If I react in a way that forces you to react back, then I can take sente from you. So if you approach me in a position of sente and force me, right? So in the case of the martial arts, if you put me in a place where I am being defensive, if I only ever defend, I'm probably not going to win. I'm probably not going to be victorious. I'm probably not going to come out on the other side okay. If I can react in such a way that makes you react to me, then I have switched. I have switched myself to being in sente, and I've put you in gote, and then now I get to decide when we're done and how we're done. And sometimes there's a going in over the course of the game of Go, there's a back and forth of that. There's times where you yield and you allow someone to be in that position, or there's times where somebody is so good at putting you where you were that you're not able to not respond. But if you can think of a way to respond that changes, think of a good example of somebody come up. This one stood out in my mind. Um, Heard a story of someone sitting at the bar, you know, sees a girl, the guy comes up, go, man, you looking at my girl? And you could say something, be like, yeah, man, she's hot. And that could probably get you punched in the face. Or you could say, yeah, you look just like, did you go to this high school? I swear to God, you went to this high school. You must be. And like, oh, no, that's not, you look just like my friend. Well, now it's not a problem, right? It was just a misunderstanding. You just thought it was somebody that you knew. Oh, okay. And it's diffused. And that is the taking of sente.
Yeah. It's interesting that um, I've heard the phrase verbal jujitsu has been used about having the ability there to have that softness, that ability to not crash in hardness into hardness, right? But that softness to be
Right.
able to not take the posture that's expected, or to not take the posture that's being prompted,
Yes.
by the other person, but to in fact find another way around, which
Find another way.
in fact engineers them to have to take a different path from what they thought they were going to take, and diffuse
That's
the whole
exactly
situation.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good book, by the way, Verbal Judo. Verbal Judo is an excellent book on that exact concept. Yeah.
Yes.
I
All
love
right.
it.
Well, Ken, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, having you on our Insight interview series.
Thank you so much.
I hope we get to speak to each other again very soon. I know we will. Thank you for your contributions to Bujin TV, being a member, and I'm looking forward to all the great stuff that comes in the future. Um, we hope that we can expand. Right now, we have the Kenfutu TV series, but I'm hoping we can expand to get more of your other streams of videos on over time too. And
Absolutely. I got to produce them, and I've got some actually, and we are in the process of building or constructing. We're adding, more than doubling the size of our dojo, and I've got some plans for things that I want to film in there that will be definitely coming to Bujin TV.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much. Chris, I've very much enjoyed speaking to Ken. Anything that you'd like to say at the end?
Well, this was a very enlightening conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. This was awesome. I really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Okay, again, Ken, thanks so much. And we'll see you on Bridging TV.
Okay, guys, we'll see you.
Okay. It's a wrap.
Hey. That's a wrap. Good. That was fantastic. That's just great. Actually, I wanted just to, talking about Sente, and I didn't want to talk about this like during the thing because kind of a distraction. But I was talking to Hokama Tetsuhiro Sensei recently, who you may have heard of. You've seen him on Bujin TV, perhaps. He's sort of a noted karate historian here and teacher. Of course, he's a calligrapher, and he's written, karate ni sente nashi, probably 1,000 times, right, on request. But he points out to me the other day that it was not something that Funakoshi originated.
Really?
Funakoshi popularized it, of course, because he put it in. That's the first of his precepts. But actually, it was a phrase that came from Asato Anko, who was one of his teachers, one of his seniors. And Asato Anko, interestingly, was principally known as a swordsman. He had been a direct student of Matsumura Sokon, who again, although we kind of think of him as the father of Okinawan karate, in fact, again, principally, he was famed as a swordsman. And one of the few Okinawan Bushi, Ryukyu Bushi, who had been sent up to both Peking to study Chinese martial arts, but also up to Satsuma to study Jigen-ryu. So anyway, Asato Anko actually kind of originated the sente ni nashi usage, and it wasn't, the meaning there wasn't don't be the first to start a fight or don't be the aggressor. It was much more about not showing a posture, not showing a position. So sente literally means the hands that go in front, right? Or as you have very very clearly seen it said in the game of Go, taking a position, right? But the idea when you think about swordsmen, if they do anything other than neutral, it is sente. If they draw their sword, it's an enormous change in posture, right? They've gone to an aggressive posture. Yeah.
Yes.
If they seem to be moving towards their sword, it's a posture. If they tense up, it's a posture. And so this idea that filtered down actually into Shurite karate from this lineage, that you should have no posture, no form, because any posture or form that you take is giving information to the opponent, but it's also prompting a response from the opponent, right? Which is exactly what you've pulled out in your analysis of sente and gote in Go. But so I find that really interesting that it's sente is not so much about not taking action, it's about not giving information, not taking a posture and giving information that can prompt the other person to start to pursue a path from which they can't stop, right? Which is the path towards aggression,
Right. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And it's an interesting kind of change of context from let's say the karate context to the the kenjutsu, batojutsu kind of that kind of context, the context of people that were armed with swords, and it was their job. The other thing that's interesting is that we think about the role of these men. They were bodyguards. They were the king's bodyguards, and Matsumura Sokon was, he lived to about 90 years old, which is incredible at that point in history. He was a bodyguard to 3 kings, successfully bodyguard to 3 kings. He must have been a master of mind games.
Mm.
You don't get to stay in that position that long without being just an absolute, like, mental ninja, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolute master of mind games. I think that Anasato was also renowned for being a very similar kind of person. Someone who would be both intellectually and physically dominant in any company. It's kind of a very interesting additional aspect to the sort of the history of Sente as it sort of came down through to sort of the karate world.
Oh, I'm so glad that you shared that. That's now I have something to think a lot about because I'm going to, but it's funny. It also connects to something that I talk about that I don't think I've ever made the connection in my mind to, because I've always, in a way, I've separated self. I'm realizing now I'm separated for myself the idea of sente and the idea of escalation, even though they're the same thing. Because I'll talk about that especially in the Filipino classes where we do a lot more bladed things, is that if I immediately pull my knife, our level just went like this.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And now I could put my knife back away, but our level might go like this. It'll never drop back down to here.
No.
Because now I've shown you that I'm willing to do that, and whether it's out or not, I've told you a lot, and I never really put those two together. But so when you started talking about the idea of sword work and the idea of taking a posture and moving, even just creating the idea that I could go somewhere is enough to change the situation.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Now, well, all right. I know what my drive to work is going to look like today.
Sensei is one of those things where really I think it's one of those things which is it's not a question that we will achieve an answer to. It's something that will just continually make us think about things in an ever evolving context. And that's what I like about Okinawan karate is that we do have these concepts. And I mean, another one is the idea of shuhari, right? And again, that's something that's commonly thought about as sort of learning, maybe analyzing and then making your own, something like that, right?
Copy, analyze, and create your own.
Yeah. And often people think about it as sort of almost like signposts on a lifelong journey, right? So they map it to sort of stages of development in their martial arts career or that sort of thing. But
right. Actually, meanwhile, it's simultaneously happening constantly.
Well, this is the thing. It's a continuous process. But interesting also, when you look at the origin of the characters, Shu, Han, Li. So Shu, it doesn't mean to protect something. It means to be within a protected enclosure, literally within the walls of the city. And Ha means to literally break out of those walls. Yeah, is to break out of that enclosure. And Ri means to move a long way, to separate yourself and move a long way away from that original position.
Interesting. So like the concept of like a bird inside of an egg, and then breaking from that, then eventually flying away and being God knows where.
Indeed. And if we think about that, this concept actually comes from a time when it goes all the way back to China. There's a good chance that this concept predates, Okinawa, and was something that was passed from China. When Chinese people see it, they can read it and they understand it, right? I know that today, and that probably harks back to, when cities were walled communities and towns were walled communities, and the expanse outside of that was that was the periphery of civilization, right? Outside was was chaos, and outside was that was something very, very different and very dangerous. That back in those times, the idea of being exiled was almost a death sentence, right? If you're pushed out of your community or you choose to leave your community, you're effectively going into extremely dangerous territory, and that can be treated almost as a death sentence. So like one of the point I think is that these phrases can have very, very different interpretations when you think about them in different contexts. Yeah, I think I think that's why we find this fascinating, right? This is because there's always so much more. There's another level, there's another angle, there's another piece of information that's always going to come into our way of understanding these things. So.
Right. I love that. Even just now, you've done it twice now. That this reattaches, and so apparently, if I need to come up with good ideas for videos, I'll just talk to you guys for a little bit. And then like, okay, I know what I'm talking about now.
That's the great thing about bridging, and I know I don't do, and I need to do more is talk to people in our community, and that's always like on my list to do more. So hopefully we'll do more of that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. This was great, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yes. Anytime. This was wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this with you guys.